Would you take a moment to look down at your right hand? The blue veins visible beneath your skin, and the warm blood flowing through them. We usually just call this the proof of life, but through the eyes of genetics, it holds a completely different meaning. It is actually the ultimate record of humanity's brutal survival, passed down without a single break for thousands of years. However, hidden within this record is a gruesome page that is hard to even look at. Even at this very moment, deeply embedded in the genes of every single cell in your body, are the intact traces of the most cruel massacre humanity has ever faced. About 7,000 years ago, nearly 95% of the world's male lineages vanished from history. The bloodlines of 19 out of every 20 men were completely severed. Only the single surviving victor claimed everything. And because the spark of life managed to survive against those miraculous odds, you are here watching this video right now. What on earth happened to our ancestors back then? Why was the world so unforgiving specifically to men? Today, we are going to uncover the secret of the 7,000-year-old massacre hidden right inside your body. In 2015, an international research team led by the University of Tartu in Estonia analyzed the Y chromosome sequences of 456 men from around the world and discovered a very strange pattern. Between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago, the genetic diversity of men collapsed simultaneously across Africa, Europe, and Asia. In genetics, this is called a bottleneck effect, which is usually caused by large-scale natural disasters or pandemics. When a volcano erupts or an ice age hits, the entire population decreases regardless of gender, and genetic diversity drops along with it. But this Neolithic bottleneck was completely different. While the female genetic marker, mitochondrial DNA, showed no change, diversity plummeted exclusively in the Y chromosome, which is passed only from father to son. What this means is that while women's genetic diversity was maintained, men were selectively wiped out. If it had been a plague or a natural disaster, both men and women should have died. But the female genes remained intact while the male genes vanished. This means it wasn't a natural phenomenon, but a man-made one. At first, scientists naturally suspected war and massacres. Indeed, archaeological evidence found across Europe from this period shows chilling traces of extreme violence. In Talheim, Germany, 34 skeletons were excavated, and almost all of their skulls had been smashed by stone axes. There wasn't a single sign of defense. They were unilaterally slaughtered from behind while trying to run away. In Schlitz, Austria, the remains of 67 people were found at the bottom of a fortress ditch. The bodies weren't even buried, left to be scavenged by wild animals. In Kilianstetten, Germany, at least 26 people were massacred in a group. The one thing all these sites had in common was this: the men were annihilated, and the young women disappeared. The researchers' conclusion was clear: the men were killed, and the reproductive age women were taken. Looking only at this evidence, the answer seems simple. Men died in droves due to war, and women were dragged off by the victors. But here is where things get strange. No matter how frequent the wars were, for 95% of male genetic diversity to evaporate, almost every single man would have to die. Yet the population itself actually exploded during this period. As agriculture began, food became abundant, villages grew larger, and there were more people. The population increased, but male genes disappeared. Something doesn't add up. It simply can't be explained just by saying a lot of people died. A study by a team from the French National Center for Scientific Research, published in Nature Communications, in April 2024, offered a completely different interpretation. After 20 years of field research on non-warring patrilineal societies in Asia and conducting mathematical modeling, they proved that Y chromosome diversity could sharply decrease even without war. The key was the formation of patrilineal clan societies. Before the agricultural revolution, during the hunter-gatherer era, social structures were relatively egalitarian. Both men and women moved freely between various groups, and it was rare for a specific male to monopolize reproduction. But as agriculture began, everything changed. The concept of land emerged. People could store grain, and they could raise livestock. For the first time, the idea of property appeared. With property came the importance of inheritance, and because inheritance was important, they had to be certain of whose child someone was. Naturally, patrilineal societies following the father's bloodline were formed, and brothers with the same father banded together to form clans. This is where a crucial shift happens. All the men within a single clan share the exact same Y chromosome. This is because the same Y chromosome is passed from father to son and then to the grandson. What happens when a war breaks out between clans? If the men of the defeated clan are wiped out, that entire clan's Y chromosome is erased from the face of the earth. Dozens, even hundreds of genetic lineages are severed in a single blow. On the other hand, since women are absorbed into the victorious clan, the female genes survive intact. A Stanford research team verified through computer simulations that if wars are repeated over generations in patrilineal societies, Y chromosome diversity indeed drops drastically. In societies where both men and women could move freely between groups, this phenomenon didn't occur even if there was war. The combination of the clan structure and warfare was the key. But the 2024 paper by the French research team takes this a step further. They argue that even without war, a patrilineal clan society in itself can cause the collapse of Y chromosome diversity. How is that possible? The core issue was the monopoly on reproduction. Chieftains or men from powerful families could have multiple wives, while men of lower status died without ever marrying. Surviving a war was useless. Social losers didn't even get the chance to pass on their genes. When this happens, specific Y chromosomes spread explosively, while other Y chromosomes see their lineages cut off and are erased from history. This is known as the superfather phenomenon. The most famous example is Genghis Khan. A study published in the American Journal of Human Genetics in 2003 revealed shocking results. About 8% of Asian men today, which translates to a staggering 16 million people worldwide, are likely descendants of Genghis Khan or his direct male relatives. The genes of a single man who died 800 years ago are currently flowing through the bodies of 16 million people. Genghis Khan took women from the regions he conquered, and his sons did the same. His eldest son, Jochi, is said to have had 40 sons just by himself. There are more similar cases. According to a 2005 study, the Y chromosome of Jiokanga, the grandfather of Nurhaci who founded the Qing dynasty, is found in 1.5 million men in northern China today. In the case of the legendary 5th century Irish king Niall of the Nine Hostages, it is said that 1 in 12 Irish men worldwide could be his descendant. If you are Korean, your Y chromosome also belongs to one of the few victors who survived somewhere on the Korean peninsula thousands of years ago. The phenomenon of having a disproportionately high number of surnames like Kim, Lee, and Park can also be seen as the historical result of specific families surviving and expanding. But this superfather phenomenon happened globally and simultaneously during the Neolithic era. A paper published by a research team at Fudan University in 2014 revealed an even more surprising fact. After precisely analyzing the Y chromosomes of 78 East Asian men, they found that about 40% of modern Han Chinese men originated from just 3 male ancestors. That means over 300 million men share just 3 grandfathers. Amazingly, the time these 3 grandfathers appeared aligns perfectly with when humanity first picked up the plow. As farming began, land and power emerged, and only those who held power could leave behind descendants. The research team cautiously suggested that they might be related to the legendary Yan Emperor and Yellow Emperor or their tribes. To sum it up, it goes like this. The cause of the Y chromosome bottleneck in the Neolithic period wasn't simply because a lot of people died. As the agricultural revolution led to the formation of patrilineal clan societies, a structure was created where only a few victors monopolized reproduction. On top of this, wars of annihilation between clans meant that the defeated clan's Y chromosomes were entirely erased, while only the genes of the victorious clans spread explosively. The shocking ratio of 17-1 wasn't just the result of a massacre, but the result of reproductive monopoly. Even if they survived a war, social losers couldn't even get married, and lines of men constantly saw their family trees cut short. When did this era of terror end? As we passed through the Bronze Age into the Iron Age and more complex social structures emerged, the situation began to change. With the formation of states, simply exterminating men on a clan level became inefficient. This was because it was much more profitable to enslave conquered people or collect taxes from them. With the advent of armies, laws, and diplomacy, primitive wars of clan annihilation gradually disappeared, and Y chromosome diversity slowly began to recover. In modern times, the frequency of war itself has significantly decreased, and the balance of terror brought by nuclear weapons has made large-scale total war virtually impossible. But an uncomfortable question remains here. Have we truly escaped that era? The truly terrifying fact is that the monster of instinct that created this horrific bottleneck is still alive inside our bodies. In evolutionary psychology, there is a concept called evolutionary mismatch. Simply put, it's like this. Our brains are like the latest smartphones, but the operating system installed in them is a 7,000-year-old version. As we navigate life, trying to make judgments with Stone Age software, we constantly run into errors. Harvard biologist Edward O. Wilson put it this way: humanity's real problem is that we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. The hardware of our brains is still optimized for small-scale tribal societies. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar from Oxford University in the UK stated that the number of people a human can truly maintain relationships with is only about 150. Beyond that, the brain just can't handle it. Our brains are designed to live in a village of about that size, figuring out who is a friend, who is a foe, who to trust, and who to be wary of. But what kind of world do we live in now? We live in a hyper-connected society linked to a global population of 8 billion. With a single smartphone, we communicate in real time with people on the other side of the planet, and we interact with thousands of people on social media. This is a completely different world from the environment in which our brains evolved. Evolutionary psychologists believe this mismatch is connected to many of the psychological issues modern people face. Think about the behavioral patterns we exhibit online. In the comment sections, we decide in 0.1 seconds who is on our side and who is the enemy, attacking people with different opinions and unconditionally defending the group we belong to. This is the modern version of the exact same instinct our Neolithic ancestors used to protect their clans. Wariness toward outsiders, prioritizing our own side, and the urge to growl over resources. These were essential instincts back then. Recognizing men from other clans as enemies and immediately switching to attack mode upon feeling threatened was the only way to survive. The keyboard battles on Twitter, the gang fights in YouTube comment sections, and political polarization. These are all manifestations of the primal instincts still breathing inside us. The problem is that these instincts are no longer useful in modern society. In fact, they have become toxic. Because our ancestors lived in a time when sugar and fat were scarce, we are programmed to unconditionally eat these foods when we see them. But now, even a quick trip to the convenience store reveals an abundance of chocolate. The result is obesity. Similarly, because a sense of belonging and recognition were essential for survival, our ancestors were designed to crave them. However, social media stimulates this desire like crazy. A single like button hits the brain's reward circuit, and algorithms fuel anger and conflict to keep us glued to our screens. So, what should we do? We cannot eliminate these instincts. They have evolved over tens of thousands of years. But if we are aware of them, we can control them. When anger boils up in the comment section, or when hostility toward a specific group surges, take a moment to pause and think. Is this truly a rational judgment, or is it a primitive instinct that used to operate in a clan society? This awareness itself is the beginning of change. While our Neolithic ancestors had no choice but to act on their instincts, we can understand those instincts and go against them if necessary. The record of those times etched into our DNA is not just simple biological information. It is practically a history book of countless victories and defeats, of survival and extinction. The fascinating thing is that scientists figured all this out just by analyzing the genes in our bodies. Just 10 years ago, people thought the Neolithic period must have been an idyllic agricultural society. They assumed people had escaped the dangers of hunting to farm stably and live peacefully. But when they looked into the Y chromosome and dug up ancient ruins, the reality was the exact opposite. It was the era of the most brutal struggle for survival in human history. The fact that you are watching this video means your ancestors survived that cruel game. The same goes for the women watching. Your mitochondrial DNA is also a record of survival that has continued unbroken through thousands of generations. Among them, someone won a war, someone was born into a powerful family, and someone might have just been lucky. The spark of life was passed down through 9,000 generations to finally reach you. Of course, this is mostly the story of the Y chromosome, the male lineage, but perhaps true victory lies elsewhere. Neolithic ancestors had to live according to their instincts, but today we can understand those instincts and go against them. Instead of seeing outsiders as enemies, we can try to understand them, and instead of inciting conflict, we can choose solidarity. That is what makes us different from our ancestors, and that is what evolution means in its truest sense. Hit subscribe and join us here at G Now. We'll keep watching the future unfold together. See you in the next video.